Welcome to the Birth in Focus podcast. I'm here with Maggie. Welcome.
Hey guys.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have you here and to just chat about birth. You have so much knowledge and so much expertise, and you've been a doula for so long.
Yeah.
So I would love to have you, though, kind of tell us a little bit more about you and how long you've been doing birth work.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. So I've been a full-time doula for 8 years. This is my only job.
That's a long time.
And the average lifespan of a doula is 2 years. So when I tell people I've been doing it for 8, they're always like, oh my gosh, how do you not burn out? And I think, I definitely go through phases, but I just love what I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. 8 years. So what got you into birth work? How did you find yourself becoming a doula?
Yeah, I feel like my story is a little bit different because typically it's people, who've had their own birth experience and then they want to go on to make a difference. But I don't have kiddos. So how I got into it was I was in nursing school in 2016 and I didn't know what I wanted to do with that path. I also felt like I was very limited to hospital policy and there's only so much you could do to make a difference in your patients' lives. And you're kind of bopping from room to room with this ongoing list, and it just wasn't the pace that I wanted for myself. So I thought it'd be really cool to be a midwife, but I didn't know how to get there. So during my research, I found out what a doula was, and I was like, oh my God, this has me written all over it.
Yeah.
So I dropped out of nursing school, got certified as a doula, and I've been doing it full time ever since. So I always kind of joke I'm a successful college dropout, but
that's really cool.
I'm really glad it worked out.
Yeah. I just am so curious, I guess, only knowing my own experience, really. What experience or exposure did you have to birth before nursing school? How did you even know that there was anything to compare it to when in nursing school?
Really, honestly, none. So I am the oldest of 3 kiddos. And I'm a lot older than my siblings, but we were all C-sections. So I never, saw my siblings be born. My mom has always kind of had a passion for birth. She supported some of her friends. And so I guess, and she and I are kind of nerds in that way where we would watch videos and stuff. So I never really had real exposure to it. It really wasn't until I became a doula where I was like, oh my gosh. I remember whenever I got certified, they were like, okay, you can go to births now. And I was like, what? Alone?
Are you sure?
On my own?
What?
That's all. And so I actually found a doula who would let me shadow her. Her name is Sarah DeMarco. And I was so grateful. So I did 3 births with her. Then she taught me how to do placenta encapsulation. And now she's gone on to be a midwife. So that's just cool seeing how people evolve.
Yeah. So now how are you feeling about becoming a midwife? Is that still potentially a goal or?
So I feel lately, probably within the last 6 months, kind of everybody I've been working with has been yeah, so when are you going to be a midwife? Everyone keeps asking me. My boyfriend's really pushing me to. And I love being a doula so much. But maybe I've always envisioned that's something I would do when I was older. But the universe lately has kind of been hinting, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Because you already assist, right?
I do. Yeah.
So how is that?
I really love birth assisting because it kind of lets you dip your toes into the medical side without all the responsibility.
Yeah.
So with that, you take vitals and you chart and you help the midwives with anything that they need, which is kind of stuff I would not so much the vitals, but I would always kind of dip my toe in that as a doula, help start the laundry and help clean up. So that kind of came very naturally. But I really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. So in 8 years, I just can't imagine 8 years of on-call life, 8 years of being a doula. That's amazing. Are there anything that you can kind of think of off the top of your head, things that have changed drastically, I guess, in the birth world from when you started to now? Just anything you've seen over those 8 years that are just a lot different now than they were then?
I think definitely with COVID being in the middle of my career was weird because birth was kind of the birth community here was one way beforehand, and then during COVID it was, I would say, like non-existent but really difficult, like you couldn't be there in person because clients could only have one person in the birth space, and of course you're going to pick your partner, you're not going to pick me. So like the virtual support was interesting, but I think the good that came out of COVID is a lot of insurances started to cover doulas.
Okay.
So we became more accessible for people during and afterwards. So that's been nice. And I think because of COVID, a lot of people didn't want to give birth in the hospital. So a lot of people moved to home births and birth centers. And I think that trend has kind of stayed. More people are open to that. So that's been nice.
So would you say that the community, specifically here where we live in the DFW Metroplex, do you feel like the community is a lot bigger now than it was 8 years ago? I mean, I feel like we have a huge birth community here. And I guess when I think about it, I'm really not that far behind you. I've been doing birth photography for 5 years.
Wow.
So I'm not that far behind you, but for some reason in my mind, 8 years seems so much longer.
I know, it feels almost like a decade.
Right?
It makes me feel
like
old.
you were like you started in a whole a whole era or something before me. Like I'm in my mind, I'm picturing the birth community in a whole different era 8 years ago than it is now.
Yeah. And I think something too is that we forget how fortunate we are in DFW, the amount of birth centers and midwives and just kind of the open ways of thinking. So my best friend is she's a military wife. And so I went to Alabama with her to help her have her second. And in Alabama, you're not allowed to have a VBAC at home or a birth center. So those are out of the options for us. And she's like, crap, I have to give birth in the hospital. Will you be there? I was like, absolutely. And when I got to that hospital, I had to sign a form, which I've never seen before here in the Metroplex, kind of stating I would promise not to interfere with any of the doctor's recommendations. And I was like, well, obviously I'm a doula. That's not my job. But I was like, I'm guessing they've had bad things in the past happen. So it's just interesting, just state to state, the different things I learned from other birth workers. And it makes me so grateful how fortunate we are in DFW with all the options that we have.
Yeah. So many resources. I mean, and even still I don't know about you, but even 5 years in to birth work, I'm still meeting new midwives and working with new midwives all the time. The client I'm on call for right now, we met at her home visit, but I've never worked with her midwife before.
Yeah.
And I met a new midwife for the first time in March. And I'm still constantly meeting new midwives. And there are so many midwives in the area that I've never worked with.
Yeah.
Which just seems kind of wild because it seems like it would a small community, but really, I mean, it's so big.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're totally right. There are so many new midwives that are popping up, which is exciting. And a lot of them are people I used to work with whenever they were nurses or whenever they were doulas. So it's been really neat to see people evolve.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's so neat. So I guess what would you say is your main passion when it comes to birth? What do you... and it could be more than one. I won't push you to one because I know it's a lot, but just, I don't know, as a doula, what makes your views unique, I guess, what, I don't know, maybe if it's particular types of birth or.
I mean, I think, we're all partial to home birth because it's so peaceful and calm, but I don't believe there's any one right way to give birth. I believe all birth is natural. So if you want to schedule a C-section and walk in and meet your baby, or you want to give birth in your backyard, I'm like, let's do it, girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think it's my job just to help whatever your wishes are and your vision is come to life and help you feel seen and heard. But I definitely think my favorite part is being a nerd about optimal fetal positioning and helping babies facilitate their path through the pelvis. There's been times where I'm at the hospital, I'm getting all this information from the provider, what station is baby? What could you feel their fontanelles? What is their head doing? And I'll get in the floor and imagine if my head is doing this, what's the pelvis doing? How do we need to move mom's hips to help give baby just like 1 more centimeter?
Yeah.
And so I've learned a lot like from Krisha Crossley and just kind of like from troubleshooting and just trying different things. And I love when just asking for 1 more hour can be the difference between a vaginal birth and a C-section. Like if everybody's vitals are fine, can we have 1 more hour? And that makes me like feel like, oh, like I'm, so grateful to be in this space.
Yeah. That's so funny. That I love that. That's so unique and not at all the answer I expected. Like, I expected a more like, cliche birth worker answer. And so something so specific like positioning is really neat. I love that. So I'd love to expand on that, and maybe you can share maybe a particular story that you can think of where something that you did made that difference. The baby was in, or maybe like you could educate us a little bit on how to tell if baby's in a funky position, and like what some of those signs look like, and some of the things you can do to kind of counter those things or help reposition baby.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So I'll try not to ramble.
Yeah. I know it's a lot. You can do it.
Okay. So we'll talk about like some signs that baby might be wonky or not optimal. I don't like saying bad because,
it's not good or bad. It's
each baby has their own root. Yeah. So if your water breaks before your contractions start, that's a sign that baby could be wonky. Like their head has kind of kinked the bag. So that's a good sign to maybe start doing some inversions, which is where like, definitely don't do this alone, Google images. But like you'll kind of lean off the side of a couch or a bench and go upside down. So that will bring baby up out of the pelvis. And then whenever you come back up, that will help baby settle down straight. Some other signs are if the contraction pattern is not consistent, if it's like coupling, if it's contraction, contraction, pause, contraction, contraction, pause. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes there's coupling like every once in a while. That's a sign too that your body's trying really hard to like move baby.
Okay. So coupling is when you've got like 2, maybe 3 that are like right there together.
And then there's like a
space.
And then another couple.
Just any sort of pattern where you're noticing that there's those 1 or 2 that are really close together.
Yeah. And you can kind of tell like on a contraction timer app, but if like the mom is hooked up to a machine, then you can like really see those lines.
Okay.
That gives me lots of information too. How your body feels. So like lower back pain, that one's kind of tough because if your baby is OP, like where their back is on your back, I've had clients who have OP babies who have no back pain. So I don't really like to go by that one. Something else too is if they feel like a sharp pain in one of their hips or low in front of their pubic bone, that could mean that baby has a hand up. And that would be nice to resolve. So you don't have to push with a hand up because that can be uncomfortable.
Yes.
So yeah, I like to start with inversions, like going upside down and bringing baby out, and then releasing ligaments too. So the ones around the uterus, but also in your hips, and then the whole back chain from your shoulders down to your ankles. Everything. So do like calf stretches, because if there's any kind of tightness, baby will avoid it and go to the space with the most room to feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to look at the whole body. Sorry, I nerded out, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. That's so cool, and also why chiropractic care can be so handy, and why those like stretches and positioning and all those things are so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that.
And that's one of the questions I always ask my clients too is, do you see a chiropractor? Do you see a pelvic PT? Because it does help, but I know it's a lot, both time-wise and financially to, do all of those things. But if you do already have a relationship set up with those providers, you can use them during labor, and then it's really good for postpartum too.
Yeah, definitely. So on the flip side, what are for you specifically are some of the hard parts or hardest parts of birth work?
I think as a doula or, a photographer, we, the majority of the time, see the good outcomes. We make it to full-term
Mm-hmm.
pregnancies. Like we make it all the way. You know, there's been a few times where, you know, there's miscarriages or like stillbirths,
Mm-hmm.
but those are, you know, very rare for us. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of my concerns with being a midwife is like you support the client more early on. So those
Mm-hmm.
become more frequent. And I think just being like a doula, like the reason we do this is because we have so much empathy and so much love for our clients,
Mm-hmm.
and to see, you know, them hurt, it's like a part of you hurts too. And so
Yeah.
I've had to, you know, do those in the past, and I'll never forget my clients' names and their babies' names.
Mm-hmm.
I've even like bought reminders for myself to
Mm-hmm.
have like on my desk of like
Yeah.
those like babies that are no longer with us, and I always
Yeah.
you know, carry their names, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really special. So it was an honor to still like support them through those moments, but
Mm-hmm.
it sucks because the majority of the work we see the good outcomes.
Yeah. The majority for sure. I wonder if, you know, part of me feels like it's just completely individualized.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody's journey and everybody's plan. But also on the flip side of that, I wonder if because I'm a photographer, I see it a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
than maybe doulas do, or maybe
Yeah.
some doulas. Just because, you know, a lot of times I'm getting messages from doulas and from midwives
Yeah.
who were not my clients, you know, and they're calling me, you know, at the last minute, and they're like,
Absolutely.
"Hey, this is happening. This is, you know, what we're walking through. We really need you to be here."
Yeah.
So, um, again, I don't know if that's just my story.
That
I
is a good
do think that
point.
photography, being a photographer, adds to that.
Yeah.
But also, you know, I do feel like some photographers are exposed to that
Mm-hmm.
more often than others. I feel like it's something I come across
Yeah.
a lot more often than a lot of other photographers do. And it's just such a sweet,
Mm-hmm.
sweet, special, sacred,
Yeah.
you know, place to be, a valley to sit in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That is a really good point because, you know, like I've had to make those calls like when it's unexpected, and it's like, I
Mm-hmm.
know, like I need a photographer like now. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we don't
Who do I
have a
call? Who
couple
do I go
days.
to? Like, who do I
Yeah.
trust?
So
Who will be willing?
yes, and
Who can
will
handle
like
it? Like,
have the right kind of like peace in
mm-hmm.
those moments.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's good to know like that you're an option for those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I've had people who don't want photos, and it's like, well, I'd rather you have them
And not
and not
use
need
them.
them
Yep.
than wish you would have had those moments and
Yeah.
you can never recapture them again. So
Yep.
yeah, I always recommend photos, both, you know, for birth and in case of a loss.
Yeah. Yep. I always tell my birth clients too when they're like, well, I don't really know if I want a picture of like, you know, my placenta or of
Mm-hmm.
crowning. Like, I don't know if I want these pictures. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's fine. I'm probably going to take them.
Right. I say the same thing.
Because they're going to need to be there. And it's just, I follow like, you know, when you know what you're doing and you do
Mm-hmm.
it so much, like for the most part, you just kind of have a checklist, a mental checklist in
Absolutely.
your mind. And so I always tell them, I'm like, you're going to have the photos probably, but if you don't want them, just don't use them.
Yeah, you can always just delete it
Or
if
just
you don't
delete
want
it.
to
Be
look
like,
at it.
nope, I know
Exactly.
what that would
I say the same
delete.
thing.
You know, yeah, because you can't go back and you can't redo them. So
yeah,
I'd rather you have the photo and not want it than have it and, or I don't know if I said that right. I'd rather you have the photo and not want it than want it and not have it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of photographers, tell me all about your thoughts, experiences on working with birth photographers over the 8 years.
Ooh, wow.
In the beginning and now. Have there been seasons where you've had, you know, more experience with photographers, like where they've been at more births than others? You know, how do you work with other photographers or with photographers?
So whenever, like on one of my forms, on top of you asking if you have a chiropractor and a pelvic PT, I ask if you have a photographer, and if they do, who is it? And then if it's not somebody I recognize, I'm like, have they done birth before? Because a lot of times it's like, oh, it's my best friend, she does weddings. I'm like, okay. Just because they do, no offense if you're listening, they're not really good at reading the room. Like they don't understand like this is like a birth, and as a photographer, you know, your role is just to capture. Like, I don't know if you agree with this, but you're kind of invisible and you're just taking pictures.
Absolutely.
Whereas in the past, I've had some who like insert themselves into the situation and like make suggestions and interventions, or talk a lot, or use flash at inappropriate times. And so it's just like, if you haven't done this before, it makes me a little bit more weary. I also love a photographer who can be helpful. Like if my hands are full, I'm like, can you hand me that?
Oh yeah.
I had a home birth one time where we had to do an emergency transfer and like the EMS are there and it's just chaos. And I was like, hey girl, can you pack a bag? I was like, I know I don't know you and I'm so sorry, but can you like throw a cell phone charger and a change of clothes for this mom? And she's like, got it. And I was like, thank you. So I love when they can be helpful and invisible at the same time. If that exists.
No, okay, so I love this because, again, not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to, for a couple of reasons. One, I have had somebody reach out to me lately, and they were like, "Hey, I was sitting in a room with like these other people, and you came up, and we were all talking about you and how shocked we were to find out how bubbly and like loud you are because in the birth space you're silent like the whole time." Until like, I was like, oh yeah, like pre-baby me and post-baby me are two totally different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like before that baby is born, you're not getting a peep out of me unless you talk to me first. I'm like avoiding eye contact. Don't look at me. I'm not here. Like, yeah, I'm so quiet. And so, but I'm also like watching everything, which is kind of why I became a doula too. A lot of people were suggested that I do it. Like I've been at births and I'm like, I can tell the doula is like about to give the mom water, or the mom is asking for water and the doula's got hip squeezes and I can see the water bottle right there.
Close, yeah.
And so like I'm always listening and I'm always aware, and so I'm like always kind of grabbing things and like handing them, or like when the midwife is busy and she's got gloves on but I know she's about to have to do heart tones, like I'll move the Doppler like right next to her and I'll show her like it's right here, or like I'll find her a towel and I'll set it next to her. Like I know what they're gonna want and what they're gonna need a lot of the time, and so if I can recognize that, I'll do that.
Yeah, so you definitely have like a doula brain, like where you anticipate what people need before they say it. Yeah,
I don't know. I guess I like to consider myself though more of like a doula for everybody. Like I like to be there and be like, okay, like I know what the midwife's gonna want. I know what the doula's gonna need next.
Yeah.
I know like dad hasn't eaten in this amount of time.
Exactly.
Like I'm watching everybody and like kind of know what's happening in the whole room. And then yes, I've done that where like mom's transferring and we need to pack a bag, and so I'm like, I knew what was important to her as far as photos went, and so I'm like, okay, like make sure we get the nameplate. She's going to want a bow. This is the baby's first outfit. Make sure we pack these things, like, and so I've helped, doulas pack bags and stuff too, because I knew there were certain things that mom wanted. I knew what she wanted. I knew I knew what baby was supposed to wear and like all these sort of things. And so I've been able to help.
Yeah. That's
pack
huge.
bags and stuff too. Yeah.
And I really like what you said about like anticipating people's needs and kind of like viewing the room as like this organism, right? And so like that's that like doula brain, like that like service heart. And I think that's what got me into like birth assisting too, because I just kind of naturally was kind of like doing those like things to like help the team.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I totally get that.
Yeah. Yep. That's me. And I feel like everybody has their job. And like as the photographer, I'm seeing like such a bigger picture than everybody else, and so I'm able to kind of watch everybody and see what's going on.
That's partially too why I like to wear like solid black scrubs, because then you can kind of like blend into the background, like when when the couple like just needs it to be just them. But yeah, when I work with photographers too, and I can see them like about to get like a shot, I'll like lean out of it. I'll like try to like if I'm not doing something important that like the mom needs, I like to kind of make it work for the photographer too. Or there's been times where something cute is happening and the photographer is not in the room, and I'll look at them and be like, hey, come get one of these.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. So do you feel like I don't know, like do you typically enjoy having photographers around? Do you feel like a lot of your clients book photographers or not so much?
Trying to like, if I had to say like a percentage, I feel like maybe 30% of my clients every year have a photographer. I do love working with them because then, if the family is comfortable, I get lots of like photos of me working, because when they don't have photographers, I'm the one taking pictures on my, Samsung Galaxy. So they're not amazing, but I normally do that for most of my people. So I get so excited whenever I have photos of me working. And if I'm allowed to share them, then that's really cool. But yeah, I think, if it's a photographer who's been in the birth space before and they know what they're doing, and they have like the, right personality for it, it's, awesome because it doesn't even feel like another person is in the room, really. I mean, for me, I can't speak for the person giving birth, but yeah, they just feel like another part of the team.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. What else can we talk about? I'm trying to think what other questions I had for you.
I feel like you had another question about the optimal fetal positioning stuff. And I feel like I answered half of it about like the signs that baby might be wonky, but there was a second part to your question. I don't remember what it was.
I don't either.
Okay.
I guess just maybe like what goes through, just expanding on what goes through your mind when you're trying to figure that out, like kind of the process that you go through, like how to determine which position, like maybe that they're in, and kind of your first go-to
like steps
to like support that. I don't want to say like treat or cure that, because again, not necessarily always possible, but you can maybe do a few things to encourage baby to change positions a little bit, of course, with your doula and your provider's permission or support,
and no other concerns. So with all those examples that I shared, like with the water breaking first, or the contractions that are coupling, or back pain, or like one like certain hot spot down low in the front, I kind of do the same thing every time. So we're going to do like a set of body balancing, like that spinning babies would recommend. So that would be that forward leaning inversion. So we would do that in between contractions 3 times to use gravity to help baby come out and then resettle straight. After that, I like to do a side lying release on the edge of the bed, where you let like a leg hang off, and massage all those ligaments down each side of the body, like from like the upper back to the glutes, down the thighs. And after that, I like to use a magnesium balm and do like a belly rub. So I'll like actually feel like from the back of the spine down to low in front and feel those round ligaments, release those. And then, if it's something where the water breaks first, we need to get contractions going right. So after everything is balanced, I like to do a regimen that Krisha Crossley taught me to bring baby lower to put pressure on the cervix to make those contractions start going. Because in Texas, your provider would like for your baby to be born within 24 hours after your water breaks. Sometimes you can sign a waiver to go to 36. So it kind of puts you on a time clock. So I like to get things going sooner rather than later. And so things that help with that is like curb walking, where you're walking along like the curb of the street, or using like a stool inside to kind of make your hips go like this to shimmy baby lower. Being on the birth ball, doing really big hip circles both ways, pelvic lift and tucks on the wall, and sitting on the toilet with yoga blocks will bring baby lower also. So once we know that your body is balanced, we wanted to put some pressure on that cervix so you start having contractions.
Everybody loves the dilation station.
Yeah, well, we do. The client might
not so much,
because it does make things more intense. But I do like it because
they love that progress, though. They love that baby.
Yeah, I think while the contractions there are more intense, it's nice because you have a place like already set up to really rest in between. You can just like kind of lay out on the back of the toilet. So I remembered
what the question was.
Oh, yay, wonderful.
Yeah, I wondered if you could think of a particular instance where baby was in a funky position and you guys did some of those things and it worked.
Yeah, that's I remember. Yeah, it's funny you asked that because I actually posted about it a couple of weeks ago on my social media with like real photos from the story. Oh my gosh, how long was this? Maybe 4 years ago. It was a birth center birth, and we transferred to Harris downtown. So we still had the midwifery care in the hospital. Mom had an epidural and she was sleeping, and we were just going for a really long time with no progress, but I went home to sleep since she was sleeping. And the midwife was a friend of mine, and she called me and she's like, "Hey Maggie, like I think we're going to have a C-section. Like there's nothing changing." And I was like, "Can I have 1 hour?" And she was like, "Sure, yeah." So I hauled booty back up there. And yeah, threw mom upside down into an inversion with an epidural, and did like the jiggle on her booty with a rebozo or a birth scarf. Did that. I think we did sideline releases. And then Krisha Crossley taught me this one. We nicknamed it the butterfly. I don't think it really has a name yet. But it's where you kind of like have them lay on their side with your legs in the butterfly.
Yeah.
And like partner or nurse will do counter pressure on the sacrum to get that tuck.
Okay.
And then you lift the belly.
Yeah.
So those are really great with epidurals because you're stuck to the bed.
That's a lot of.
There's a lot of moving parts to it.
There's a lot of moving parts to that.
I'll have to show you that one time, or we can share a picture. And yeah, she progressed very quickly and had a vaginal birth.
That's perfect.
And there's lots of stories like that where, if everyone's vitals are fine, just asking for more time can make a big difference. But yeah, and so I helped her have that first baby. And then a few years later, she asked me to help her have her second. And I was like, I would love to. I love repeat clients. Yes. I will always squeeze them in. They're my favorite. And so I was, very grateful for that midwife to giving us more time, and for the mom too, to want to continue working, to
be willing to keep trying. I mean, after everything she's been through,
I totally get when people like are just tired and ready to meet their baby. I'm like, let's do it. Let's have the C-section if that's what you want. But I'm really grateful we had that vaginal birth because it made the second one a lot easier. She didn't have to have a VBAC. So yeah, but there's lots of stories like that. But that's one that I have photos from of me, and that was like right post COVID too. So I was wearing a mask in the pictures. But yeah, I'm like in the bed, like shaking her. So yeah, there's some photos on my Instagram. Yeah,
I've seen I feel like I've seen a couple of times where shaking their bottom with the rebozo really does the trick. And I've heard a couple of doulas and providers and stuff kind of compare it to a car ride. That it really mimics the bumpiness of a car ride. Because it's another thing I've noticed too, that a lot of people who stall or who are struggling at birth centers, they get in the car to transfer, and then they're having babies in pparking lots and in emergency rooms because all they needed was a quick little car ride or a little jiggle. So
yeah, absolutely.
I've heard midwives joke about from now on, they're just going to have them go for a ride. You just go around the block and come back, and then we'll see how things are going.
Yeah. I've had a few times where we're transferring from the birth center to the hospital, and the midwife will ride with them for that reason, in case you just needed a little jiggle when baby comes.
So I've added that to my mental list. If I'm at home and things are stalling, I'm like, let's just go for a car ride. I'm not going to transfer. Just going to go for a ride. I'll be back in a minute. Y'all stay here. I've added it to my list of things to try in the future if we ever have a baby.
Yeah, find a bumpy back road to go drive on. No, I'm kidding.
Yes. Yep. Well, I'm sure we could find one.
That's cute.
Okay. So there are two more questions I know of for sure that I had. Cool. So one thing I wanted to talk about, because I think it's, kind of specific or special to me meeting you, is backups. Because I've only worked with you in the birth space once, and I barely remember it because it was a long time ago.
I remember it very well. Yeah.
I mean, I do too. But, it was really cool. I loved it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't actually your client.
Right.
You were backing someone else up who had been with this client for a really long time already and needed some support. And so that was the first time I met you, and it was really early on in my birth work. And so, I would just love to hear, in 8 years, kind of how working with backups has worked, what's worked, what hasn't worked. If you have any cool stories of times when you've needed a backup or been a backup, all the things. Because like I said, that's how I met you, was you were backing up at a birth I was at. So
yeah, that's so wild. So actually that story is one of my favorites. So my friend and backup, Tiara Craig of Mother Bear Doula Services, she was pregnant at the time. She was with this client for 18 hours. And she texted me, she's like, Maggie, I'm so pregnant. I'm so tired. Can we tag team? And I was like, yeah, girl. So I'd never met this client or this mom before,
or me,
or you. I'd never done a birth there at that birth center before, and so I was walking into a lot of unknowns. And so I walked in. Mom was completely naked. She had tattoos. She looked at me, and I looked at her because I have lots of tattoos. And we both kind of clicked, oh yeah,
just
we're cool,
right
we're friends. So, and then I was with her for another 18 hours. Side note, that mom also only had 3 songs on her playlist, and it was Enya. Do you remember this? It was
I
just
don't
straight
know.
Enya for 18 hours. I thought I was going to lose my mind. But
Yeah.
anyways,
I mean, I was just so mesmerized by like all the nudity. I don't think I was paying attention to what was happening.
I remember us like, giving mom space, and us like sitting outside and
Yeah.
having snacks and like having coffee and just getting to know you. But
Yeah.
I remember you being like very excited and like very bubbly and just like happy to be there.
Just so happy to be there.
And that was the first time that we met. That's so funny. But actually that mom, she, lives in the same city as me. We run into each other all the time, and she's like, oh my God, hey. And so, so we're still friends, even though, I walked into her space not knowing anything.
Yeah.
But anyways, so back to your question. I love backing up for other people because it lets my nerd brain go crazy with the optimal fetal positioning stuff. I can walk in not knowing anything about this mom or this baby and ask the provider all of these questions to gather information on like what her baby is doing and what her body needs, and then kind of get to work. And I do feel like every time I have backed up for somebody else, it's like I was meant to be there. Like we always click, things go really great, and it's just meant to be. So it doesn't scare me. Now for myself, I've only used a backup twice. So I'm very grateful in my 8 years, knock on wood. I haven't ever really needed them.
Yeah.
But, it just always works out.
Yeah. I feel like I am very similar. I have been very, very fortunate. I've only used a backup one time. And even then it was just because we thought labor was going to go faster than it did. And so she only stayed there for a couple hours. And I got there and I was like, okay, you can go now. But yeah, I love backing up for others. Like it's just kind of like, it's fun and it's spontaneous. And it's like, oh, who wasn't doing anything else today? Let's go watch a baby be born.
Yeah. And I actually like backing up for others so much that I kind of added a new service to my business called there's not really like a word for it, but it's like labor stall assistance. So this is more so for providers out there, but like if midwives or photographer or maybe another doula is at a birth and they can't figure it out and there's a stall or things have slowed down, I'll just come in for like 2 hours and do some body work and then give next steps and then leave. So then it helps to change those outcomes, might even prevent like a transfer. And so I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, I love that too. That's really great. Especially like, in a situation where, a client doesn't hire a doula specifically, but then they're, they find themselves stalled at home or at the birth center or wherever. And they're like, I don't need a doula like 100%, but I could really use just somebody to come in really quick and show me what I'm not seeing and
so
change things
it's
up.
like kind of for like if like the midwife is at a loss, she's tried everything, the birth assistant has tried everything, maybe they've even had like an adjustment from the chiropractor and like nothing's changed, like what else can we do? So I would love to more people to ask me to come do that because I think it's really fun.
That's
also
so
like
neat.
making a difference. So
you may have already answered this question with that, but I wanted to end with kind of what your goals are right now. So next steps in your business as a doula, and just kind of where you see your business going in the near and even far future.
So I did just, talk about that, the adding the labor stall assistance. I'm also working on a doula mentorship program. And so what that will look like is depending on, how much help you want with your business, it's anywhere from 3 months to 12 months. You also have unlimited access to me. So you can, ask me any questions if you're at a birth. So it covers both labor help, but also business help too, because as a doula, most programs, I would say 90% don't teach you anything about the business part. So like running social media and building a website, filing your taxes. I mean, I'm not a certified tax person, but like there's like tips and tricks. And so I really just want to help others because I had none of that. I'm all like self-taught. So working on that. I'm also publishing 3 books to Amazon right now.
Wow.
Yeah, very exciting.
That's huge.
So, thankful to Mandy Foreman for showing me how to do that. But so I'm working on my birth binder right now. It's being reviewed by a couple other professionals, but it's like 70 pages of notes for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. So that is for clients, but also for doulas too. It kind of gives you something like to work off of with your clients. And then I have a birth debrief journal I'm very excited about. So this is for all birth workers. Whether you have a birth that is, flawless or something didn't go quite right, or maybe it was a C-section, you're kind of like blaming yourself. I didn't really feel like there was like a space for me to unpack that. And I go to therapy. I love my therapist, but she's not a doula, right? She doesn't really get it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a journal for you to unpack those feelings. What do you need? How are you feeling? Because it's really hard for us to doula ourselves. Like we give everybody else so much care.
Yeah.
But so sometimes I have to ask myself, like, if I had a doula here, what would she do for me? She would draw a bath. She would feed me. So the journal kind of helps you work through those things, and that will be on Amazon soon.
Well, that's exciting. Look at you go.
Excited.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, then tell us where we can connect with you, where we can find you. Your name, socials, website, all the things. And then, let us know when all of your books are available.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I live in Denton, Texas, but I serve all of DFW with like an hour and a half radius. My Facebook and Instagram are all Blue Bonnet Birth Services. If you want to set up a free consultation, you can do so on my website at bluebonnetbirthservices.com. I take on 3 clients per month, and I have lots of openings for the fall right now.
Yeah, those fall and holiday babies are starting to appear.
Yeah, and I always work during the holidays, so other doulas can take breaks. So
I know it's been so same because like you said in the beginning. We're birth workers who don't have kids, which is kind of unique.
Yes.
Most birth workers have babies of their own. And so, I do the same every year. I'm like, okay, no baby this year. We'll work in December. No baby this year. Working in December.
Yeah.
Like I've always been on call like every December because I want to offer, because a lot of birth workers and photographers and stuff take off for December because they don't want to risk missing Christmas morning, with their babies. And I totally get that. So I'm putting in my time now so that I can, take off December in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny too, like the same birth workers reach out to me every year because they know that I'm working. They're
like, hey, you're going to be
on call? I'm like, oh, yep, I got you, girl.
Yep. So, yes, I already got a text from a December mom the other day, and I'm like,
oh,
yes!
It's exciting.
Oh my gosh, it's April, and already I'm dreaming of Christmas babies. So
I know I'm excited. Funny how our brains work. Like we plan like stuff 6 months in advance. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, a minimum. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing so much knowledge and amazingness. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.